I am one of those people who actually likes the winter time, not just in games but in real life. We're not talking about winter in real life though, we're talking about snow and wintertime in games. Just to let you know, these are all opinions of my own, and it's not meant to be the top 7 winter-themed games of all time. If you want to go find a listicle, there's plenty of those on YouTube. You can go find one of those. That's not what this is. I'm going to talk to you about what I liked, what I didn't like, what I'd like to see more of in these winter games. And you're not going to need to worry about major spoilers for any of the games I'm talking about. So let's just get right into it. I like how this game feels. It's a lot of fun in the snowy mountains in the Alps, which is primarily where you're going to be playing. Additionally, you can visit Alaska, Japan, and Korea. I only have the Alaska DLC though. The snow crunches as you walk through it, and there's a nice walking animation in the snow. Your character picks up their feet as you would in snow instead of plowing through it. Being that you're on a mountain, the snow is always a little deep. And if you're walking down slope that is steep, your character will not fall to their death, but they'll gently slide down the slope. And if it's not too steep, your character won't slide, but they'll kind of lean back as they walk down the slope. And if you're going up the slopes, you kind of climb on all fours instead of just walking straight up the slope, as I have seen in other games where you can just walk up the side of a mountain no problem. This is a minor thing, but I really like the idle animations when you're not doing anything. The skis in particular, your character kind of wiggles and moves around and does things, and I've always found it weird in other games when your character just stands there staring into the void. They're not doing anything at all. So it's nice that your character isn't just staring into nothingness. Now, there are some frozen lakes that you can walk on, but you get this weird animation as if you're walking through deep snow when you're on the ice. And there's also no sliding on the ice either. And I'm not asking you to slip and slide all over the place, but to just have a little extra sliding animation when you're on the ice, that would be nice. However, when you are on the ice or near glaciers, you can hear the cracking and groaning of the ice, which is a nice touch, and I'll let you have a little listen to that. Speaking of sounds, I've heard wolves howling, geese flying overhead, and woodpeckers too, which are all nice things to hear because you could have easily made a game where it's completely desolate, you don't hear anything, you don't really see anything, it's just snow and rocks and ice and that's it. So it's nice that there's a little bit of life in this game. And it does snow, but I've noticed more snow actually falling out of the sky on the Alaska map than in the Alps. In the Alps, there seems to be these little snowflakes that fade in and out on the screen. It's not really snowing, but the snow is sort of kind of there, but not really. You can, of course, do different tricks if you're skiing or snowboarding. And it doesn't seem too difficult to do the tricks. I'm on a controller and you're just using the left analog stick and pushing up, down, left, right. You'll do flips and you'll do turns or twists. I'm not very good at it, but I'm sure with practice I could figure out how to do like some really cool looking tricks with a lot of flips and everything. But it's nice. Overall, I really like this game. Is it a perfect game? No. But it does feel like it's winter time. You know, I look at this game and it feels cold. It feels like I'm on a mountain in the Alps. It's bright, it's sunny most of the time, and it's fun. It's a good time. You can play with other people online, which is also nice. And it's just good. I just like it. What I like about this map is that they chose to make it bright and sunny. They could have made this a dark and cold map, and while Imperial troopers are trying to shoot you, it feels more pleasant when it's so bright and sunny. As you run and jump your way around the map, the snow crunches under your feet, but you never have to worry about sinking into knee-deep snow. At the same time, though, snow is constantly falling around you as a cold wind blows, but it's certainly not whiteout conditions. It's a pleasant, constant snowfall. This could make for a pleasant walk, yet there isn't too much for scenery, as there are no trees and only rock outcrops all over the place. Just make sure an ATST doesn't step on you. There is something else about this map. It's not the blasters firing at you, or the explosions, or all the yelling. No. If you turn the music off and eliminate all the excess noise, you're left hearing just a cold wind and strange noises. Groans, moans, howls off in the distance make for an eerie experience. There are things out there, and you can't see them, and you probably don't want to, but have a listen. This is a harsh world without the armies present, and yet it's stunning to look at. This map captures that balance between the harshness and the beautiful. As you look out to the horizon of the map, you might imagine that going to one of those peaks would give you a view of something more out there. But I wager that even if you made it there, you would just find more snow and rocks and probably a vicious creature or two that wants to tear you apart. Welcome to the winter world of Death Stranding. This part of the map is really beautiful if you take a moment to look around. Now thankfully at this point I've got access to the all-terrain skeleton, which acts as snowshoes almost. You can walk somewhat normally over the snow. And the snow isn't deep everywhere, but when you are walking through it, Sam looks like he's struggling in a pretty believable way. Of course, you can bypass this problem by getting yourself a truck, making traversing this area much easier. It would have been cool to see a snowmobile instead for this area, like a modified motorbike, but alas, there's no such luck. I have a few things I would have liked to have seen for this area, such as different snow depths. As it stands, you're either walking on top of the snow or you're knee-deep in it and having problems. Now, this game is already an exercise in patience, so why not make it more difficult to deal with the snow? Your scanner already detects hazards on the ground and water depth, so why not snow depth? It's possible that you may sink into deep snow and be unable to get out. If that's the case, then Sam needs to abandon some cargo to lighten the load and get out, but the cargo's gone. Speaking of traversal trouble, what about throwing a frozen river at the player early on? You can cross it, but be careful with how much weight you've got with you because you can fall through the ice. This is where the scanner comes in because you can see where the ice is thin and where it's thick. The game already does this with water depth. You might say that's a redundant addition because functionally going into deep water or falling through thin ice results in the same thing, being swept away. The ice can serve another function. Let's say the river is frozen and you've scanned the ice but it's too thin based on the weight you're carrying. You don't want to cross multiple times, so you take off some small cargo to lessen the weight and cross. For a river with flowing water, you can take those small pieces of cargo and throw them to the other side, but that would damage them. This part of the river is too wide, so I can't throw them across. On a frozen river, however, you could slide those couple of packages across the ice to the other side. They're light enough to not break the ice, and then you walk across with the rest of the cargo, and then pick up those small packages on the other side. And you only had to cross once. This would add to the theme of the area, which is it's the cold, frozen mountains, and gives you another way to interact with the world. I enjoy even minor ways to have more interactions in games. I want to make sure that I'm explaining this clearly. So when you scan water, blue means it's okay to cross, yellow means it's a little hazardous, red means you're going to get swept away. With the ice, when you scan and you get these different colored areas, what you can do to adjust is take off some of the weight that you have on you, put it on the ground, rescan again, and then the areas that were in red are now in yellow or even blue, so that you know that it's better to cross now that you've unloaded some of the weight. The scanner would adjust based on the weight that you have on you, which I think would be interesting.
Gotta work on those core muscles.
Now, later on, you have the resources to build a bridge over rivers, so crossing is not a problem. You can build zip lines, which cover huge distances if you can chain them all together. You can make your way across the entire map, basically, on zip lines. Or you can drive a truck straight through the problem. But early on, a frozen river presents a challenge to you that is a little different than what you dealt with previously and is thematically appropriate for the winter setting. I haven't talked too much about how the game looks, but it's gorgeous. It's harsh and beautiful at the same time. In some games, slopes don't matter, but in this one it does, and you can lose your footing and slide down a slope like this, and you can really hurt yourself and probably lose some cargo if you're not careful. I was sitting here for a bit to see if the tracks would fill in or disappear over time, which they don't seem to do, so I had to try to figure out a different way to find out what was going on. So I started moving around a bit, and what you will find is that not only do those little details in the snow tracks disappear relatively quickly over time, but once you move some distance away, it's not that far, the tracks will disappear and fill in. You can see as I'm moving over this way that once I go back in that other direction, the snow tracks that were there disappears. So as you can see here, the tracks that were here got filled in, and I was trying to look at it as I was moving away, and it seemed like the transition from the tracks being there to not being there is relatively smooth. You can kind of see it here. There's not a hard straight line where the tracks are there 1 minute and then they're gone. They kind of smoothly disappear. So that's not too bad. It doesn't look too off-putting, and you can see all the tracks that I just made are gone. I have no idea what this line is. One other thing that I noticed is that this game does have that snow sparkle, which I don't know how well it shows up in the video, but I didn't notice this before, and I'm noticing it now, and I like it. I like that there's this little detail like this, because not all games that have snow have this. I just noticed that Sam rubs his hands together a little bit when it's cold. It's always cold, but when you're idle, I hadn't noticed this before. This is another nice kind of detail that I like. Now, I got this game when it first came out, and I played it for a while, but eventually I did just get kind of sick of it. I had my fill of it. It is, as I mentioned, a test of patience and can be a bit tedious to play this game, but I do enjoy this. I especially like this section. I didn't even talk about like the sound of the wind blowing and the snow effects when it is snowing look really nice. And yeah, I think this is a good winter setting if you're looking for a little walk through the snow. Ghost of Tsushima is a beautiful game with many great looking areas, as anybody who's played the game knows, and the northern part of the island is no different. You have the typical pine trees that cover a lot of this part of the island. When you bump into the pines, the snow doesn't fall off or anything, but they're nice to look at. In another biome, you have these more generic-looking snow-covered trees with red and white bushes. I say generic, it's not meant to be insulting, I just have no idea what kinds of trees these are supposed to be. I do like the red, it sticks out in this area, and it reminds me of dogwood, which I believe is what these probably are. And dogwood is found in Japan, so this checks out. We've got another biome in the western portion of the island with this big cedar forest. And I like this area in particular. There's something about being in this snowy forest that I like a lot. For whatever reason, I associate cedars with the wintertime. I don't know why. I just really like this area. Just take a second to take all this in. I love it. You have an area like this, which is a burned down forest. And not that I like burned down forests, not in real life, but I like the look of this area. It's desolate and cold, and it really feels inhospitable. And you can still see embers around, but something about the juxtaposition of this area has burned recently and it was very hot. Now it has mostly stopped burning, although you can see fires in the distance, and the cold winter has taken hold. It just makes it feel even more inhospitable and somehow colder than even the areas that have snow on the ground. Just something about it I like. And when you're in this burned down area, this is one of the things I love, all the little particle effects. You can see the snow in the air, but also all of the black soot and ash, and a few of the embers. And you do have this frozen lake area too, which looks nice. I'm glad they included that. I did try to slip and slide on the ice, but you can't. There's no sliding on the ice, unfortunately. I do also like this frozen river. As you make your way up here, you can see that these waterfalls are frozen solid. It's a nice touch. It's extremely cold in this area. I'm surprised Jin is not having problems with the freezing effect here. More frozen water here. It looks nice. I love it. Multiple little waterfalls. They're all frozen. And a whole lot of big icicles on this waterfall. Nice. If you listen closely, you can hear the ice cracking here just a little bit. This isn't a comprehensive list by any means, and I'm aware that there are 40 different biomes in the whole game, but the winter biomes, I think, nail it in terms of the looks. The particle effects help a lot to have the snow constantly everywhere all the time, and even though I think there's less variety in the biomes in the winter sections, I still think they look good. Other areas of the islands, you've got different types of forests, you have grasslands, you have swamps and stuff like that. Even with all that said, I think this area looks great. The snow itself doesn't have any depth to it anywhere that I've seen, but you do leave tracks in the snow, and it does crunch under your feet, and Jin does kick up a little bit of snow. You can see it here as he walks, so that's something. There is a freezing effect in this, so that if you go up a mountain, you will get hypothermia and freeze to death unless you warm up by a fire. See, the frost effects show up on the screen, and Jin keeps talking about, I'm cold, I need a fire. I did find a fire and tried to light it, but no dice on that one. I didn't know about this freezing effect, and I got confused about why I couldn't climb the mountain. I was hoping for a good vantage point to survey the island, but even if I did get up there, it's constantly snowing, so I can't see very far anyway. So, I decided to test out this hypothermia thing with the water. Remember, some areas have frozen water, so it's cold enough for that. The water is flowing freely here, but if the game is consistent about freezing to death, Jin should experience freezing after being in the water here. You can see the snow around me. And is he going to start shivering? No, he's fine. I did find that there is a quest that you do scale the mountain without freezing, and it's called the Undying Flame. See, here's the same fire from before that I tried to light, and now it's lit. So you ascend the mountain in this quest and fight some dogs, or not, see ya. As you're climbing, there is also a bear that you can fight, or not, see ya never. You make your way to the top of the mountain here, where this guy has a dojo, and he seems pretty friendly. He's willing to teach you his sword technique, so you fight him and beat him. You learn the way of the flame, and once the quest is done, clear skies all around once the quest is done. It's fine, the game just didn't want you to climb the mountain before you did this quest. I'm just a little bummed I didn't get to climb it when I wanted to. I have some complaints about Ghost of Tsushima. A lot of it is kind of just nitpicking. That's sort of what this whole video is about. But Ghost of Tsushima is still one of the better open world games, one of the better games that I've played. I really love this game. And if you're looking to have a nice time in the winter, whether it's winter time for you and you're just in the mood to play it, or maybe you're a weirdo like me sometimes where I get in the mood to play a game that's totally out of season, like play something that's winter based in the summertime just because I am a freak and I miss the snow sometimes, this is a good option for you. I like the winter setting in this game. Gears 5 in the winter is fantastic. The whole look of this area is great. There's plenty of snow and ice formations all over the place. You have all these pine trees and these other giant trees that are around, and in a couple of portions the wind is so strong from the snow blowing around that it's frozen to the sides of the trees as these big icicles. It really adds to the look and the harshness of this area, and I like it a lot. And you get to this one part where the wind is howling and blowing things around. There's these big chunks of ice that are coming down and slamming into the ground. It seems very, very dangerous. And it sounds good too. The thud when the ice hits the ground is really cool.
We're losing you.
It's the storm! Just keep going! We gotta find new hope!
Kate, look! The facility! Dead ahead!
Let's get inside! Look out! We gotta stop! Jim's guard must have been corrupted!
Just take it out! Car flanking!
Gotta wait through.
I like these areas inside where there'll be a hole in the ceiling and you can see little bits of snowflakes falling through the cracks. You can't escape winter even inside. And there's lots of icicles, but you can't destroy them, which is kind of disappointing. But what is destructible is cover in some areas because it's made out of ice. And as you shoot them, they can break apart, or if you throw a grenade at them, they'll break apart also. It's really neat because then you can force enemies to move out of cover because you've destroyed the cover that they were behind. And the ice that is covering these trees that I showed you before, yes, you can shoot down that ice and it falls off of the trees. It's not much, but it's just a little thing that adds a little something more to the world that I like. I love this part where you come upon a bunch of locusts that are patrolling around and they're all standing on the ice, and, well, just watch what happens.
Shit. Get behind something. Swarm ahead.
Okay, we got a bunch of swarm on thin ice. You thinking what I'm thinking?
Time to go loud!
You can shoot the ice and the locusts fall through the cracks and drown. Now, the development team didn't have to do this. They could have just had the ice there for aesthetic purposes and you can't shoot it or break it or do anything with it. It's this kind of thing that I like to see more of in games. I've thought about this a lot lately. Graphics have improved and become more detailed, but I don't feel like there's much room for improvement. Instead, what I want to see more games do is add ways to interact with them. I enjoy pretty games, but what I enjoy more are games that allow players to interact with the world in ways that have nothing to do with the story, side missions, or collectibles, but add depth to the world. Games where the world and the characters in it react to you. Something else that I forgot to mention, I try to throw a grenade here and the wind is so strong that I'm trying to aim it here and I toss it and the wind just takes it away. It's just another one of those little details that's really interesting. It would have been easy to have this wind effect and it doesn't actually impact gameplay at all. It's just there for the look. But in this game, not only is it there for the look, it actually affects your ability to throw the grenades, which I think is really interesting. Right off the bat, the opening sequence for Rise of the Tomb Raider looks and feels great. The snow and ice are whipping by, and I do think it's a little bit dangerous that she's climbing without a rope here. That's a little odd. But even though this opening sequence gets a little overly dramatic with all of the rocks falling and the snow and the ice collapsing and other hazards,
Shit, Lara! You're gonna give me a heart attack!
I do like this. And if you take a minute to look around at the mountains, it's a real treat to look
Storm's
at.
getting closer. We have a couple hours at most.
Should be enough time. We're almost to the top.
The game almost entirely takes place in Siberia, I actually expected this game to be more of a globe-trotting adventure, but I'm okay with it just taking place in the frozen wastes.
Just this last stretch to the top.
You have to get through a different section of the game before you get back to Siberia, but that takes place in the desert, and we're just going to go ahead and skip all that because it's only one section of the game, and that's not why we're here. We're here to talk about wintertime. Ah, yes, the wintertime. This area, I think, nails the whole winter look. It's snowing all the time. Your clothes are covered in snow. There's snow on the sides of trees. There's snow on all the leaves. It just looks and feels right to me. I have noticed that Lara shivers and rubs her arms to stay warm. It makes it more convincing that it's very cold here. Because in some games, your character just stands there no matter what the weather is like, staring into the void like nothing is happening. And when Lara approaches a fire, she will hold her hands out to the fire, which makes it more convincing and makes me feel like Lara is reacting to the world. It's a small thing, but I like little stuff like that. There are areas of deep snow, but they seem few and far between. I only noticed them in this opening section where you have to walk through a bit of deep snow here. And then later on, when you're trying to fight a bear and you're trying to outrun the thing, you can get caught up in deep snow. But other than that, I don't think there's this deep snow anywhere else. There is a fight scene, like I mentioned, where you fight a bear. I wasn't recording at the time, so sorry about that one. But the whole fight felt wrong to me. And essentially, I'm told that the only way that I can kill this bear is by poisoning it. Now, in order to kill the bear, you have to collect these death cap mushrooms that you can see I'm looking at right here, and cover the arrowheads with toxins from said mushrooms. Now, I'm being picky again, but death cap mushrooms, or Amanita phalloides, which is the scientific name, does not really exist in Siberia. They exist in Western Russia, but Western Russia isn't Siberia. Now, anybody at all can fact check me on this, and in fact, I want you to. But as far as I can tell from the little bit of research that I did, this mushroom should actually be fly agaric, Amanita muscaria, which does exist in Siberia, but it doesn't really kill people or other animals. From a website about mushroom poisoning syndromes by the North American Mycological Association, talking about A. muscaria and other types of mushrooms, quote, "In humans, there is no reliably documented cases of death from toxins in these mushrooms in the past 100 years, end quote, and then continuing later, quote, "Dogs and especially cats can die from isoxazole toxins, though it is important for the vet not to euthanize an animal even though the chances for recovery appear remote. Once the animal awakens from the comatose state, recovery is normally complete over the course of a week or so," end quote. Not only do the toxins in the mushrooms not kill people, they don't typically kill dogs or cats, two animals which are much smaller and less robust than a 450 kilogram brown bear. I'm sorry, I had to look this up. When it said that death caps are in Siberia, I had to know if that's actually where they grow. And the devs kind of got it right. It's the right family of mushrooms, Amanita, but it's not quite right. Now, don't worry, I'm not actually mad about this at all. I just wanted to look it up to see if death cap mushrooms actually do grow out in Siberia. I had to know. Credit where credit is due. Magnesite, which is the resource you're looking at on the screen right now, is used in crafting in the game, and in fact, that mineral is mined in abundance in Russia, so kudos for that. So there is this one section that I want to talk about, and this is later in the game. You've just been through areas with a lot of enemies and doing a lot of fighting and stuff like that, and you have these guys with these kind of laser pointers coming after you, this like elite squad who wants to take you down. And Lara ends up falling in the water, and she's in the water here, and there's this little section where Lara has to take out these enemies. She's diving underneath the ice. There's a few open areas, and you have to take down each enemy one by one. She should be freezing to death in the water here, but never mind. It's interesting that they're utilizing the ice because Lara's able to dive underneath it and the enemies can't see through the ice, and you have to pop up and come back down and take out an enemy. And the situation doesn't work if there's no ice. I suppose you could have floating platforms or something that the enemies are walking on that they can't see through. That could also work, but it is trying to utilize this winter setting when there is ice. So I do like this as an idea. The problem is that I find this whole section to be very clunky. The enemies will always make their way towards whatever hole in the ice you're at, which fine, that's fine. But it's really difficult to see the enemies, and there's a couple of times here where I'll be underneath the ice. There's no way that the enemy can see me, and yet somehow they do see me, and they start shooting at me, and I just find this whole section to be very clunky. It's a good idea, but I don't think that it's very well executed. I'm under the ice. How did you see me here? How on earth did you see me? This guy above me saw me? No way. The guy across the ice, sure, but the one right above me? No. That's where the alert marker was. He didn't see me. It was also very hard to move the camera around when you're under the water. You can come to the surface, but you gotta move pretty fast, otherwise the enemies will see you. So it was just hard to find the right camera angle. It wasn't until close to the end, when you've eliminated almost all of the enemies, when it was okay to come up on the ice. I came up when there were 2 left. But definitely don't try to go up on the ice when there's all of them or most of them left, because they'll get you right away.
That was the last of them. Got to get back to Jonah.
I do have my gripes about the game, but I do like how they try to utilize the ice and snow in wintry setting overall. Batman Arkham Origins is the last game we'll look at, and it's the only one that has a big modern city in it. So the aesthetic isn't just snow, it's holiday decorations, and that adds more rather than only having snow on the ground. It's the holidays, clearly, as you glide through the city and the snow is falling around you. I actually think that this is supposed to take place on Christmas Eve. Yes, it's true, I just looked it up. It says so on the Steam page that this takes place on Christmas Eve. So, yeah, we're in the holidays. I did notice right away, you can see it here on the ground, that the snow does have that sparkling effect to it. I love it. I love to see it. So you can see there's lots of different kinds of lights here. You've got string lights that go across the street. You have these snowflake-shaped lights that are also hanging in the streets. You have them on buildings. There are areas where people have string lights all around their windows, and some of them change colors, some of them are the same color. You've got some big ribbons down here on the fences. You can also find these on the sides of buildings and elsewhere. Some more snowflakes and strings of lights too. There's some Christmas trees on this string of lights, and lights on the trees, on the actual trees. You can see over here that the coloring of the light from the cinema is red, and the sparkle on the snow is also red. I like that it's a different color and it's not all just white colored. It depends on what light is around, so I like that detail. More lights on the trees, and ooh, look at this. We've got a nice little frozen pond here. Please, can we have a little bit of sliding going on? Can we please get some sliding mechanics? Unfortunately, there is no sliding on the ice here. I would have loved to have seen it. I don't know how difficult that is to program into a game, but it is nice to see when it makes an appearance. I know that Red Dead Redemption 2, which is not on this list, and I'll explain why later, does have not full-on sliding on the ice, but when you're walking on the ice, you do kind of slip a little bit, which is a nice detail to have. I tried the slide on both the ice and just on the pavement. I don't see any difference in the distance between these two slides. I was trying to get these icicles to fall down with my batarangs, but I don't think I can knock these down. They're not, you can't interact with them. I do like the winter and holiday feeling of this game. Batman does leave tracks in the snow, but it's clearly just a dusting on the ground. It's nice to see anyway. Some games just paint the ground white and call it a day, so this is a little extra effort. I did see other decorations around like elves, presents, and it's always snowing a little bit in Gotham City, and that looks nice too. It's not the best game on this list in terms of a winter setting, but it is nice, and I could wander around for a bit just taking it all in. Thank you for watching this video. I put a lot of time into this, and I have lots of plans for future videos kind of like this. Longer videos where I cover a lot of games or 1 or 2 games, but more in depth. It's a labor of love. I enjoy doing this and making things for other people to watch. I appreciate you for watching this far, and I'll see you next time.